the symbolism involving spiders in this movie and people who have seen this film having their interpretations of them, could it all be possible that it was foreshadowing that Jake Gyllenhaal would go on to play a Spider-Man villain in the future? It was all there, but we just didn't notice it. Hey movie buffs, I'm Jack Benner and welcome to my review of Enemy. Enemy is a 2014 psychological thriller from A24 directed by Denis Villeneuve starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Jake Gyllenhaal. Enemy follows Adam, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a reserved college history professor. One day, he rents a movie recommended by a coworker and notices an actor that looks exactly like him. He becomes obsessed with finding this man Anthony, also played by Jake Gyllenhaal, to learn more information about him. Now, Enemy was actually made before Prisoners, and Denis Villeneuve even cast Jake Gyllenhaal in Prisoners without any audition. Enemy premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2013, then released in the US in the spring of 2014 by A24, so this is why I was covering Prisoners first, then on to Enemy. Now, I first watched Enemy a couple of years ago on Netflix, and I was excited to watch it because I adored Prisoners, and excited to see another collaboration between Denis Villeneuve and Jake Gyllenhaal. And I've heard this was one of his more complex movies as a director, and when I watched it, I loved Enemy, just with its surrealism and symbolism within the story, and many years later, I still think it's a great and underrated gem from Denis Villeneuve. Let's start this review with the pros. First thing to talk about in Enemy is Jake Gyllenhaal. He gives a fantastic dual performance. And this proves why Jake Gyllenhaal is one of my favorite actors. And he gives such a terrific, versatile dual performance as both Adam and Anthony. By achieving successful results with Adam, a neurotic and reserved professor living a quiet, repetitive, and monotonous lifestyle, who starts to become obsessed with finding this exact lookalike of him. And with Anthony, who's an actor, he's cleaner and not a neurotic, but he's having problem with commitment, his marriage, and his acting career isn't really taking off. And I loved how Jake Gyllenhaal successfully balances both characters with their differences and little details within their performances. And this was such a great Jake Gyllenhaal performance in 2014. And speaking of which, there was another performance later in that year, which I thought he should have been a lock for an Oscar nomination for, but let's just say the Academy made a huge mistake and an egregious Best Actor snub, and easily the biggest Best Actor snub of the 2010s decade. What were they thinking? He should have been nominated! But regardless, Jake Gyllenhaal had a great 2014 with this and Nightcrawler, his career best performance. And after Prisoners, this film continues to show how great of a director Denis Villeneuve is. I admire how he took the story of this exact lookalike of you, and his approach to this story makes it so unique and fascinating. And Denis Villeneuve's usage of symbolism to craft such an engaging story is what makes this film noteworthy to me. It's an incredible looking movie with a great yellow color palette, and Denis Villeneuve is still great with his camera work, focusing on the right shots, given meaning, and does an excellent job building tension as the film goes on with the mystery and how are things gonna go. The musical score is great and eerie, doing a great job being appropriate for the surrealness of the film. And I do want to keep this review spoiler free because I know not everyone has seen this movie, and it is quite a complex movie because there are so many meanings and symbols in the film that it's worth checking out for yourself. I love the symbolism involving spiders in this movie and what they represent for Jake's characters. I never felt like they were too obvious with their representation, but rather subtly enough in the film's subtext to where it makes you think and wonder like, okay, what's the meaning behind this? What could this be? Felt like they made sense within their purpose of the story, and they even tie into one of the themes of repetition, and what does the title Enemy really means, and even in the ending, and honestly without spoiling anything, I never found it to be a scary ending, but more so, okay, I could see what they were going for. As for issues or nitpicks, now this may seem like I'm grasping at straws for finding flaws with this movie, but I would say, in terms of films that Jake Gyllenhaal has done with Denis Villeneuve, I don't quite love this movie as much as Prisoners. To sum up, Enemy is a tense, unique, surreal, and very fascinating psychological thriller from Denis Villeneuve. Led by a fantastic dual performance from Jake Gyllenhaal, fantastic direction, and it's such a complex, thought-provoking, and unforgettable film. If you have seen Enemy before and interested in giving it a rewatch, either to catch up on Denis Villeneuve's filmography or to understand it more, definitely rewatch it. I think it's worth it. And if you've never seen this movie before and it looks interesting to you, and if you love Denis Villeneuve as a director and you haven't seen this movie, definitely seek out Enemy. Or if you admire unusual and experimental films like this that really gets you thinking on its themes and symbols, definitely check it out. However, I do want to say this is not a film for everyone. And if you're not really into strange and unusual films like this, not really into artsy, unusual, and confusing movies, I wouldn't really recommend this movie to you if it's not your cup of tea. Either way, I still think Enemy is a great movie that continues to show Denis Villeneuve's talent as a director. And now to grade it, I'm going to give Enemy 4.5 stars out of 5. And A, this would be one of my top 15 or 20 favorite movies of 2014. That was such a great year in film. And since this studio has so many great movies in their filmography, I would say it would be 15, 20 so in my favorite A24 movies that they have done. And it really shows how unique of a studio that is, willing to show unusual, risky, thought-provoking movies like this. If Denis Villeneuve is planning to work with Jake Gyllenhaal again in the future, I'd be so ecstatic if they reunite again. It's evident with Prisoners and Enemy, they should collaborate more often. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of Enemy if you've seen it? Do you agree? Disagree with my review? Or if you haven't seen it, are you interested in checking the film out or not? Let me know down below. Did you enjoy hearing my thoughts on this movie and want to see more reviews like this in the future? If yes, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here, and don't forget that notification bell for my next upload in the future. It really means a lot. And until the next video, I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.